All right, everyone. So obviously I'm not in person today. Unfortunately, you guys should be aware I am at a funeral. So this will have to do for our final lesson of social studies curriculum. Starting tomorrow, we will start reviewing for your final exam. But we're going to take a look at our final two presidents, Barack Obama and Donald Trump. This is not an easy lesson for me to teach because I look at things from a historical perspective, and these two presidents are relatively new. So we're still kind of trying to figure out how history views these two particular presidents. And I'm trying to look at it from a social studies perspective and not necessarily the perspective of someone who lived under these two administrations. So I will do the best I can to teach it as unbiasedly as possible. Now, we are going to start with Obama. He will definitely be on your final. Trump might be. I'm still wrapping your final up a little bit, but ultimately, Barack Obama and what you're learning today will definitely be on it. There could be some stuff on Trump, but you got to be responsible for all of it. So just kind of keep that in mind. So the focus question is, how did the politics of America divide further under Obama and Trump? And that's the truth. From 2008 to 2021 now, our country has really continued to split over politics, specifically between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans and Democrats really don't see eye to eye on like much. And it's been dividing for a long time now. So we'll kind of take a look at this. But we need to first start off by saying, you know, when Barack Obama was elected, it was a historic moment. Obviously, first black president to be elected to our country. It was a beautiful thing from a country that once had slavery and Jim Crow. To see a black person become president was obviously an amazing thing. So I think it's just important to kind of go and see that historic moment in 2008 when he was elected. So I'm going to just, you know, play a 2-minute video of kind of what that looked like so you guys to experience it and share it. And then we'll go into our first slide of notes. The only thing you have to do today, you should see, is just write down the notes and post them. That's all you have to do, along with the secret coded word, which I'll tell you a little bit later.
On the East Coast, we're back on the air, and we have news. There will be young children in the White House for the first time since the Kennedy generation.
Barack Obama, in our view, President-elect of the United States of America.
Barack Obama is projected to be the next president of the United States of America.
Barack Obama, 47 years old, will become the president-elect of the United States.
This is a profoundly important passage out of the deep shadows of our racist past that began with that first slave offloaded on a ship.
But whenever a kid said, I want to be president, I literally saw a black parent say, son or daughter, you may think it needs something else. I have 9 nieces and 4 nephews. And when I talk to them, I can actually say that and mean it. Bingo. That's right.
There will be setbacks and false starts. There are many who won't agree with every decision or policy I make as president. And we know the government can't solve every problem. But I will always be honest with you about the challenges we face. I will listen to you, especially when we disagree. Out of many, we are one, that while we breathe, we hope. And where we are met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you. And may God bless the United States of America.
All right, so you may have heard that slogan, Yes, We Can. That was his big campaign slogan. You also would see this photo around a lot, hope Okay, I remember I was around 18 years old at the time when he was elected for the first time. And you would see that photo a lot. And basically, it was the idea that, like, together as a country, we can come together and, you know, be a unified country. Doesn't matter what, you know, race you are, sort of thing. And, you know, a lot of people elected Barack Obama because we thought that he would kind of unify the country. And as you'll see, I'm not necessarily sure that happened, as you'll see going forward. So this is the slide you have to do for Obama. You may want to make a little T-chart or just separate from left to right. You can definitely, you know, do this in your own way, just as long as it gets onto the paper, that's fine. We can't say this enough, and if you need to pause the video, that's obviously fine. We can't say this enough for him to be elected as the first black president in a country that had slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and the Ku Klux Klan is a tremendous feat. I mean, no one can take that ever away from Barack Obama. This was a situation that many people were very proud of when he got elected. Basically, it's shown how far our country has come because a black person was not going to be elected in 1820 and 1920, you know, or 1908 and 1925. Okay, but in 2008, he was elected and he won in a pretty big, I'm not going to say a landslide. He won by over 100 electoral votes, though. Which is obviously a big, big win, especially through the modern politics of this age. So that is extremely important. Okay, I don't want to make light of that whatsoever, especially for, you know, you heard in the video there, you know, black boys and black girls to see, they can see themselves, you know, they can see themselves in, you know, President Obama, and then they can eventually become president. I think having that representation out there is important. All right. He was very big in helping out specifically gay, bisexual, and transgender people. One of the biggest things that happened under his presidency was basically gay marriage was deemed legal in all of the United States. Prior to this, it was a state issue, a reserved power from the 10th Amendment. So certain states you were allowed to marry if you were gay, but other states you were not. Thanks to the Supreme Court case Obergefell versus Hodges, it doesn't have to go in our Supreme Court case. But this basically meant that gay marriage is legal in all of the states of the United States. Okay, and it didn't have to be in a state that had it. So I believe New York eventually was one of those states that had gay marriage. Massachusetts did, but like a state like Mississippi didn't. So if you were gay in Mississippi, you couldn't get married until 2015 when this came out. I put, if you notice, under good things done, Obamacare. I put it under the good things and also the controversial things. And I think both things can be kind of true at once. There were many people without health insurance in the 2000s, close to 30 million people. Basically, the way it works is for you to have health insurance, you generally need to have a job, okay, a full-time job, a career. If you worked at a, you know, like if you were a babysitter, let's say, you're not going to get health insurance through your job there, okay? But if you have a career, so to speak, you can get health insurance, okay? Like I'm a teacher, I get health insurance, I could sign up for it, no problem. Obamacare was basically health insurance for people that didn't really have a full-time job. Now, we kind of already have Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid was specifically for people that are poor, but there were some people who weren't poor but also didn't have health insurance. So this tried to cover basically every American. And it went through the idea that basically healthcare is a human right, meaning that if you're a citizen in this country, you should be given healthcare. All right. With that being said, that led to some more controversial things. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. Okay, I want to finish up with the kind of good things he did. When he took over as president, the economy was in shambles. In 2008, it was really bad because of the recession you guys learned about yesterday from the housing crisis. So when he took over, unemployment was very high. A lot of people didn't have work. And by his second term, that seemed to be fixed in a big way. So, you know, a lot more jobs were available, which was good. And then one of the most famous things he did in terms of foreign policy was he was able to locate Osama bin Laden. They had a very secretive mission, and were able to take him out on May 2nd, 2011, almost 10 years after September 11th. And that would lead for a huge victory for our country. And obviously Obama was president when that happened. So that was a very important thing. Controversial things done. Okay, I'm going to go back to Obamacare. Why was Obamacare controversial? Well, number one, okay, it raised taxes on a lot of people. All right. Number two, there was this idea of what's known as the individual mandate. Okay, so if you did not have health insurance in your own and you decided to not sign up for Obamacare, you were given a penalty. The penalty was very expensive. It was something like $800 to $1,000 a month usually. Okay, so you had to pay a penalty for not having health insurance, and this left people very upset. If people don't want to have health insurance, many people believe that they shouldn't be forced to get it. So this was something that, a lot of people weren't too happy with. And it also then goes into like, okay, how much government is too much government sort of thing. Like, is the government responsible for providing health care for people if they're not desperately wanting it? Okay, and that's the controversial thing that goes with it. And Obamacare doesn't really exist anymore. It was taken out when Trump became president. So it's not something that lasted very long. But it has its pros and cons. But, the cons definitely being that, it raised taxes on large groups of people. And like, if you're just like a general worker, let's say you're a teacher, you would have to pay for your own health insurance usually. Then you'd have to pay for Medicare and Medicaid, and then you have your taxes raised on Obamacare. People felt like they were paying for 3 different health insurances and only getting the use of one. So that one was a little controversial. I would say maybe the weaker parts of his presidency was in foreign policy. I'm not trying to say that biasly. I'm just trying to look back and see what, his foreign policy in dealing with other countries. He was basically campaigning in 2008 to get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. It took like 6 years. He stayed in Iraq for like 3 or 4 years, and he stayed in Afghanistan all the way to 2014. And actually, by the end of his presidency, he really never left. So a lot of people kind of saw that as like him not holding his campaign promise sort of thing. And it just seemed like he went on they were called apology tours. They were tours basically where he went around basically apologizing for how America, treated countries in the Middle East and stuff, and some people weren't a big fan of that. Probably the most controversial thing of his presidency was the Iran deal. So for those that don't know, Iran is one of our enemies, and he came out with a peace deal with them, which at the time, at the beginning, seemed like a good deal because we looked like we were going to maybe get into a war with Iran. But this peace deal ended up really not being a great thing. He basically gave money to the leaders of Iran in exchange for them promising to halt their nuclear program, and basically said their nuclear program can't start running again until 2024, which many people were upset about because people knew Obama wouldn't be president by then. Moreover, with that money, Iran took that money and started making other weapons, and those weapons were used in some of the attacks and battles throughout some of the wars in the Middle East. So a lot of people weren't a big fan of the Iran deal. But some would argue that, it kept us out of a war with Iran, so maybe it was a good thing. If you guys I'm not sure if you guys may be a little too young, but if you guys have ever heard of ISIS, ISIS got very big after the Iran deal, specifically in the Middle East. And if we had a little more time to go into them, but they by the end of Obama's presidency, they became one of the bigger terrorist organizations in the Middle East. And one of their main targets was, coming after the West and coming after the United States. Controversial, there was a gap between the rich and the poor, increased. We won't spend too much time on that. And I would just say the division between Republicans and Democrats seemed to deepen. It seemed like everyone started just kind of going with their political parties as opposed to what was necessarily best. It certainly became a lot more in the 2010s than prior to this. And it got way worse, especially when Trump became president. So we'll talk about that soon. So Obamacare, no, we don't have to do that. I've seen this on the Regents once. It won't be on your final, but it's just, it wasn't this one. I'm sorry, it was this one here. This one was the one I've seen on the Regents a couple years back. It talked about, how Iran, one of their, sayings sometimes is death to America. And it says, I know it's very tough to see, it says Iran before the nuclear deal, they're just screaming death to America. And then after the nuclear Iran deal, They're holding a nuclear weapon and holding money. And the idea was that the Iran deal did not accomplish its goal of, lessening tension between the United States and Iran, and the Iranians gain more money from it. So the Iran deal is controversial. I've seen it on the regions once, but I don't think it's going to be on your final. All right. This is more Obama, not on the regions. So you don't have to copy this down. I'm not sure if it's good or bad. Just kind of mentioned there's some big topics, and these aren't all of them. But obviously, I'm not talking about transgender rights, being a bad thing. Of course, they're a great thing. The controversy came in terms of the bathrooms and the military. Towards the end of Obama's presidency, we didn't have a clear answer on, how transgender people should be incorporated into the bathrooms. And you guys see, you have boys and girls bathrooms, you have men and women bathrooms. How are they going to be incorporated to bathrooms? What about the military? Okay, what are the policies with the military? So these are just a lot of unanswered questions. Police brutality issues. For those that don't know, prior to George Floyd, in the 2014, 2015, you had Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin. Those were all under Obama's presidency, and they were very controversial, just like George Floyd. One of the biggest issues at the time was, how do we go further as a country? And nothing seemed to be done. There wasn't really any laws passed. There weren't really any major changes, and a lot of people were disappointed upon that. On the other side, a lot of police officers were disappointed because they felt like Obama was really targeting the police and not really looking at both sides of the picture. So that is just a controversial issue that continued even to today. You guys are well aware of it. The economy under Obama did improve, but it did not improve at the rate it probably should have. He came in as president, our economy numbers were extremely, extremely low. And they grew, but they did not grow at a very fast rate. He's the only president, I believe, where we had a GDP, which is an economic number, with less than 3%. Every president besides him has had it over that. So it grew, but it just didn't grow at the rate it should have. Towards the end of his presidency, there was a lot of immigration issues. Our border laws were not really followed very well. And he didn't really enforce a lot of the border laws. So many illegal immigrants started coming in towards the end of the presidency. And if you know anything about how Trump was elected, this is one of the ways he got elected, because he attacked this issue that the Obama administration didn't really do too much about. And then obviously my famous, there's more government programs like Obamacare. There was more federal government involvement, but that usually led to higher taxes and a little bit of a higher deficit as well. And we know the pros and cons of both of those. I'm not sure where you guys stand on that, but there's pros and cons to both sides. All right. There's a thing I usually show, but we don't have the time to do it now. If you do want to spend a little time, I'm going to just show you some videos here. Not going to play the videos. Basically, there's a YouTube video of basically why Obama is the best president of all time. Where is it? Let's see. I think it's this. It's called Why Obama is One of the Most Consequential Presidents in American History, meaning did so much and looked at as one of the best presidents of all time. And then you'll notice that they also have why he is the worst president of all time. All right, this is by Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is a big-time conservative Republican thinker. All right, so he thinks Obama is the worst president of all time. And then this is Vox.com. Vox.com is very Democrat-leaning, so this is why they think they're one of the best presidents of all time. So if you want to watch these, you could just look them up on YouTube and kind of see. You'll see both perspectives on President Obama, and that's it. So you guys have that opportunity if you want to. Take a look at these two regions questions. All right. Both President Franklin D. Roosevelt and President Barack Obama undertook banking and financial reforms during their administration to what? Pause the video if you need. All right, the correct answer is 3. Restore stability to the national economy. When Obama came in, okay, we had the 2008 recession. When Roosevelt came in, we were dealing with the Great Depression, so they tried to bring stability to our national economy. The next one, historians most likely refers to the wars in Afghanistan as Obama's Vietnam because what? So see if you can get the answer, and I can kind of explain this a little bit more. Pause the video if you need. All right, and this correct answer is 4. Barack Obama chose to continue military involvement in Afghanistan. Very similar to how when Richard Nixon took over, he promised Vietnamization and getting out of Vietnam, and it didn't take 3 months, it took like 5 years. All right, so the pace of which we thought we'd get out of these wars took a lot longer under both Richard Nixon and under Obama for Afghanistan. They took a lot longer than expected. All right, so we continued the military involvement in Afghanistan. All right. This is our final president. Obviously, we're not going to go into Joe Biden because he is the current president right now, and we don't have too much history on him, but we will go into the 45th president, Donald Trump. You don't need to write this down. His election of 2016 is extremely controversial. We should know this is one of the elections where the winner of the popular vote does not win the election. So Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, and I'm going to try to just kind of spell out why he won. It was a very interesting election in terms of just how basically someone who was never in politics rose all the way to the presidency. So first and foremost, we need to look at Hillary Clinton and the way she campaigned, because I think looking back, it's been now 5 years, there was a lot of mistakes that were made. First and foremost, Hillary Clinton did not campaign in the Midwestern states at all. So if you look at the states on the top here, you'll see Obama won the states of Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Okay, you see that from the 2012 Electoral College map. In 2016, okay, they turned red, okay, meaning Trump won Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And that's pretty much the election, because everything else kind of stayed the same from both of the years. Not really too much change besides Pennsylvania as well. Okay, so we can add Pennsylvania to that group. Hillary did very little campaigning there. Trump, on the other hand, went very hard in those areas. In fact, the day before the election, I remember he was still campaigning in Wisconsin and Michigan, like a day before the election. So that was probably a big mistake. I think Hillary Clinton thought those states were locked up for her, and they weren't. And they turned to Republican states throughout this election. A couple months before the election, Hillary Clinton had an email scandal she lied about. Many people didn't trust her. Now, at the same time, Trump had some controversial things kind of coming out. He had some comments about women that many people weren't too big of a fan of. So it worked kind of both ways. But the email scandal led to this kind of thought that, can we really trust Hillary Clinton sort of thing? Like, people understood that Trump was kind of like a low character guy. So for him to make bad comments about women, I don't think was a surprise to many people. The fact that Hillary Clinton lied about the emails, though, became a little bit of an issue for her. She made a big mistake in 2016. She had called people who voted for Trump as deplorables, or supporters of Trump to be deplorable people, meaning bad people. And this led a lot of people to get energized to go vote against her. Maybe people who weren't so interested in politics being called a deplorable definitely didn't help out, and this led to what's called the Forgotten Americans. Trump used that kind of language to try and get people to say, hey, Hillary doesn't think much of you, maybe you should come vote for us, sort of thing. Some other things, Trump made a very strong push for America First, basically meaning we want to stop worrying about what other countries are doing or how other countries feel about us. Let's take care of our country first. So that resonated with a lot of people. Media was rather biased against Trump, but also probably the biggest mistake the media made was they never took him seriously. I mean, they really thought of him as a joke. And I'm going to show you a video of that really quickly to kind of prove to you that the media never took him seriously. And that was a big mistake, because he was gaining a lot of support very quickly, and the media never really caught on until it was too late. So basically, the Obama administration, this happens every election. The new president that's running against a new administration is going to come in and point out all of the bad things the new side has done. Biden did this with Trump. Trump did this with Obama. Obama did it with Bush. This isn't a major thing. But, he basically looked at the foreign policy mistakes, and Trump said how he'd be better about that. Looked at the higher taxes and basically said, we're going to improve upon that. And for the people that were upset about his foreign policy or upset about the higher taxes, made Trump seem a little more favorable. And the last and probably the most important thing the Democratic voters just didn't show up on election night. They just didn't go. I don't think they were thrilled about Hillary Clinton as a candidate. I think some of them thought that Hillary Clinton would win without a problem. So like a lot of people didn't literally show up and vote. Many more people went out and voted for Barack Obama. Many more people went out and voted for Joe Biden. Like no one really showed up to vote for Hillary. So it could be a lot of things, but when you kind of pull all those things together, that was the problem. All right, so I'm not sure which one of these, stands out to be the reason why Trump won, but these are some big mistakes that were made coming into this particular election of 2016. All right, the video I wanted to show you was basically kind of proving that the media never took Trump seriously, but then like things started to pick up, and then eventually he has a real chance to win. So just watch how this breaks down. We're not going to watch the whole thing, maybe just the first half of it, so you'll get the point after a little bit of how like the media and the people around politics really didn't take Trump seriously until it was too late.
Donald Trump, just last week, he confirmed to the National Review that he is again considering a run in 2016.
Do it. Do it. Look at me. Do it. I will personally write you a campaign check now on behalf of this country, which does not want you to be president, but which badly wants you to run.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
Is that people think that Donald Trump is a clown.
Donald Trump is a clown.
I mean, does anybody seriously think that Donald Trump is serious about running for president?
Donald Trump, he's a clown.
The likely moderator apparently believes that Donald Trump is a clown.
Which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones right now, Donald Trump.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
So basically, this is the beginning of the end for Trump.
The beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end?
This is probably starting of the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency.
The strongest person usually isn't the loudest one in the room.
So right now we have Hillary's about a 75 or an 80% favorite. We have different versions of the forecast you can look at.
The poll has Hillary Clinton up by double digits nationally, 12 points, 50 to 38, a four-way race.
Clinton leading in Florida, Clinton leading in North Carolina, Clinton leading in Ohio, Clinton leading in Nevada. I could go on and on and on.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
And so, right now, Mr. Trump, to answer your call for political honesty, I just want to say, you're not going to be president, all right? It's been fun. It's been great. I love you. But come on, buddy.
We have a major projection right now. Donald Trump will take Ohio. That CNN projects Donald Trump will carry the state of Florida. Huge win for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, we project, will win in Kentucky, in Indiana, with its 11 electoral votes. West Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Carolina, Alabama, North Dakota, with its 3 electoral votes, and South Dakota, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, the state of Montana, North Carolina, Georgia, Iowa, Utah, Wisconsin, Arizona, Kansas with its 6 electoral votes, Nebraska with its 5 electoral votes, and Wyoming with its 3 electoral votes.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business.
All right, so you get the point. They really didn't take him seriously, and then before it was too late, he was winning up all these states and eventually becoming president of the United States. So we'll look at the final slide you have to copy down for this school year. It's the way I'm doing this is basically we're going to look at Donald Trump prior to 2020, and then that's pretty much the only stuff you need to know for the regions. And then we'll look at after 2020. You don't need to after 2020 during 2020. You don't really need to write that down, but we'll just kind of go over it because I think prior to 2020. He had a much better chance of winning re-election, and then he had a very bad final year in office. And I even think his biggest supporters would say he didn't do a very good job his last year. So we'll talk about that. So I kind of have it set up the same way. The good things done and then the controversial things done as well. So just keep in mind, election of 2016, lost the popular vote, but still got over 300 electoral votes to win the election. So it's one of the few times it's probably ever happened, but ultimately he did win by like 70 electoral votes, which is interesting because he lost by like 2 million popular votes. But, first and foremost, he had a big thing with called tax cuts, similar to Reagan in some ways, not exactly, but he wanted to lower taxes specifically on businesses and the middle class. Though the upper class actually paid more taxes. So if you're really rich, you paid more taxes. But if you owned a business, you would pay less taxes. So kind of like evened out a little bit. I think something like 80% of the population paid less taxes. I know myself personally in 2018 when his tax plan went into effect, I actually paid, I think, a total of $60 less a paycheck in taxes. And I think my wife paid like something like $50 less a paycheck. So it's an extra $110, $200 a month coming into our family, which was nice. But our debt didn't increase because we were still paying for all those same government programs for the most part. So we still owed a lot of money, and we know how big of an issue debt is right now in 2021. Probably the strongest thing of his presidency, I would say, was foreign policy. Number one, ISIS was eliminated pretty quickly. Within a year in office, ISIS was practically non-existent. I'm not going to say they were completely gone, but like they weren't causing really any havoc like they were in 2013, 2014, 2015. I say the North Korea relationship was much better. Trump did have a good relationship with North Korea. And some people find that is not so good because maybe we shouldn't have a good relationship with them because their dictator is not so good. But ultimately, the relationship was better. And this led to like the North and South Korea peace agreement to end the Korean War in 2018. That helped out. That was a good moment throughout Trump's presidency. He got rid of the Iran deal, which many people were a fan of. Basically, like, Iran's our enemy. We shouldn't be giving them money, so to speak. So some people are happy about that. Some people worried that this would lead to a war, but nothing ever transpired. There was a lot of peace deals between Israel and other countries towards the very end of his presidency. Israel and Bahrain was one of them. There was the Abraham Accords, if you ever look that up. Those were good things for under Trump. And I would probably say the best thing was it was the first president since Herbert Hoover where there wasn't a new war. There were no new wars under Trump. For someone when I grew up in middle school and high school, we were always in a war, whether it was Afghanistan or Iraq. Under Obama, there was a war, the Libyan War, which I didn't go over really in the last slide, but there was a war with Libya. There was no new wars here, under Trump. And prior to 2020, prior to COVID, the economy was doing very well. Some of the best it's ever done. We had pretty much anyone who wanted a job could get a job. There was no unemployment issues. There was a lot of money being made, and everything was pretty much going good economically. So if you are someone who's big on foreign policy as a president or the economy, Trump did a pretty good job with that. The more controversial things have pretty much a lot to do with how he acts and operates and what he says. So his social media tweeting, his press conferences, he certainly was not the best character president we've ever had. We talk about, presidents leading by example and being good people, so to speak. Trump was pretty open about not really doing that. He wasn't trying to be politically correct, so to speak. And this led to him being very much disliked by a lot of people. I forgot to add one here. I'm just going to do it. I left it blank. I just say that further divide of Republicans and Democrats. Sorry, I realized I was blank. Sorry about that. So if you could just add that yourself. Many people at the time, and still do view him as racist, sexist, bigoted, just someone who, isn't really trying to look out for all different types of people, certain laws, certain comments. I'm teaching you. I'm recording a lesson for tomorrow. Certain laws and comments didn't really sit well with certain people. And there was these very famous Charlottesville comments where he said something like, there's very fine people on both sides, talking about, the Ku Klux Klan a little bit and the white supremacist groups, which, was not great. Some people say it was taken out of context a little bit, but ultimately, it wasn't a great moment. And he would constantly say things like that got him in trouble. His Twitter was like every day something was controversially said, and it just wore on people. Even if you do some good things in policy, the way you act and the way you say things, people remember. And that was very tough for a lot of people to handle. He certainly didn't unify the country. The divide between Republicans and Democrats seemed to deepen. It seems like every issue is like, Republicans and Democrats just completely disagree on. And basically both sides just say that the other side is so wrong and so dumb and so horrible for the way they think. I've never seen anything like it. There's no middle ground or common ground between the two sides. I'm hoping, by the end of this class, you realize that these situations are often complicated, and there are multiple perspectives, and you should try and look at both sides and then make your determination. So some of the adults in this country don't do that. They just, whatever their political party thinks is what they think, and it got worse under Trump. It was bad under Obama. It got worse under Trump, and it's something that needs to be fixed as soon as possible, because we're dividing so much as a country between if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and it's getting very tiresome. In the beginning of his presidency, there was also a travel ban on Muslim-based countries. Some people called them a Muslim ban. Basically, if you were from a certain country, you're not allowed to travel. Some people thought it was targeted specifically against Muslim people. It was focused on some Muslim countries, but those are the countries that we didn't get along with so well at the time, so they weren't allowed to come here. So people, if you thought he was already racist, this didn't help your view of him, so to speak. But that was kind of the beginning of his presidency. Not much really came from it towards the end. I'm not sure if good or bad. He was very critical of the media, which some people, didn't really like, but some people were like, yeah, no, the media's not great at times. So they kind of saw his perspective on that. Anytime the media was being biased, he would call them out on it. This was an exercise I did with, my students, was kind of just like, proving, how the media can be biased in certain situations. We've seen that as a class. So he was very big about pointing that out. His wall with Mexico, also controversial. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Just depends the side you're on. Illegal immigration did lessen under Trump. But if you believe Trump to be racist, you can sometimes construe the wall as racist. So it just depends your perspective on these things. So this was all prior to 2020. And I think he had if you were to ask me in 2019 if he was going to be reelected, I would say there's actually a pretty good chance. But what happened in 2020 was just not good. There was a lot of things that went wrong. And you guys lived through this, so I don't have to go into too much detail. You guys have your own perspectives on that. And the way you feel is perfectly fine. I'm just going to kind of mention some of the challenges and situations. Early on in January of 2020, there was almost World War III. It really never got to that, but people were worried about, basically, America and Iran going to war. It actually, I think, ended up working out well for the United States and for Trump, because we ended up taking out one or two of their top leaders of the terrorist organization of Hamas, and out over in Iran, we took out some of their big leaders, and no American soldiers died. So that seems like a pretty good trade in terms of, military casualties. He got impeached in January 2020 over a Ukraine phone call. It was very complicated. He ended up being impeached in the House and then acquitted in the Senate. Won't be on your final, but just something that, again, just another president impeached. And I put impeachments because he actually got impeached after he was taken out of office, basically, like a week before he got impeached, and then he was acquitted again because of the January 6th insurrection. But that's going to be something you learn about, 10 years down the road. COVID-19 hit in March. I mean, we know all about that, obviously. I don't think he could have prevented it from coming. All right, that's something out of the power of the president. I think his biggest issue was his message and his response. He said a lot of inaccurate things. He said some things that, kind of dismissed the severity of COVID. And then at times he, maybe tried to open the country up too quickly. His just response wasn't good. And if you ask me why he didn't get reelected, that would probably be the biggest reason. because his response to COVID, again, was he going to lessen the amount of people that got it, lessen the amount of people that died? I'm not sure. But certainly the way the response went wasn't the best. You know, when there's times of crisis, many people look to political leaders for inspiration, and he didn't really inspire many people. You know, I'm thinking World War II, I'm thinking Pearl Harbor, I'm thinking September 11th. The leaders at the time inspired the nation to come back together, and I don't think Trump did that last year. We know police brutality, George Floyd. You know, the summer, you know, was a very intense moment for Black Lives Matter, and there was no like recognition of it. It was just not much, you know, coming from his administration. So again, people just didn't really do much, you know, and didn't believe that he was, you know, doing enough to help, you know, police brutality, to, you know, help the race issue in the country at all. And, you know, when you add that with the COVID, not great. And that was all happening at the same time. If you remember, this was like May, June, July, where COVID was really bad. And then we also had the protests for George Floyd and police brutality stuff. And one of his big things in the first 3 years of his administration was that the economy did really, really well. But during COVID, we had to close everything down and shut everything down. It wasn't really necessarily his fault, so to speak. It's just you had to close everything down because of COVID, and the economy crashed. Okay, unemployment went up to like 20%, and people were out of work, and we had the stimulus checks. And one of his big things as president that, you know, people voted for him for wasn't even doing great right now. And that was obviously a big thing. And even though January 6th was in 2021, you guys are all familiar with the insurrection. We talked about that in class already. That was like the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, of his presidency. That happened after he was elected, though. So like, it wasn't changing anything. It was just like the final blemish on his record, I guess you could say, which was obviously a horrible day in American history, and something we'll learn about for years to come. But you guys lived through it, so we don't need to really spend too much more time on that. So with that being said, I'm now going to give you what the secret coded word is. The secret coded word is congratulations. Okay, congratulations to you guys. You guys just got through an 11th grade U.S. history class. I'm very proud of you all. This is just the kind of final farewell. I'm sorry we couldn't be there together in person. You know, some unfortunate life incidents happened, and I have to go deal with that. But you've copied, I think it's a total of 536 slides this year, or we're supposed to. And, you know, why don't you take one hand like this and another hand like this and start doing this for yourself. Your secret coded word is congratulations. You are all done with, you know, 11th grade U.S. history for Regents. Now it's just prepping and getting ready for the final. I'm so proud of you guys for making it this far. And I really appreciate you guys all doing this and being a part of this. So have a great rest of your day. Write down the notes into your, and turn in the notes and write the secret coded word of congratulations, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, guys.